after years, decades, 3 decades in fact, of the Eastern Conference being a clear tier below the Western Conference in terms of talent. The East is finally starting to make a comeback and starting to become an equal, if not superior conference in its own right. And this year, I believe the East will be the best it has ever been in its history, with currently 8 teams who I think most people would agree should be playoff locks in the Eastern Conference. You have the Bucks, Nets, Sixers, Celtics, Hawks, Knicks, Bulls, and Heat. 8 teams. 8 teams who should have winning records and should be making the playoffs in the East. But if there is one other team who I believe could steal a playoff spot from any of those 8 I listed, I think that it is the Charlotte Hornets. Going back to last season, the Charlotte Hornets pretty much had a playoff spot clinched in the middle of the year. They were as high as the 5th seed at one point, I believe, and they had a pretty big amount of wins in between them and whoever was the 9th seed at the time. But unfortunately, like many teams, the Charlotte Hornets caught the injury bug, and their 2, or at least I should say 2 of their 3 best players in Gordon Hayward and Lamelo Ball both missed around 20 games last season, and therefore the Hornets were just not able to get it done. They fell out of the playoffs, they couldn't get it done in the play-in tournament, and they ended up missing the postseason altogether. But in this upcoming season, fingers crossed, I'm not, jinxing it right here, everybody should be healthy. I would fully expect Lamelo Ball to be healthy, but with Gordon Hayward, the man's just been a freaking injury-prone nightmare for the last several years. Ever since this guy left Utah, he gets injured at least once a season. I really feel bad for Gordon Hayward because he seems like a nice dude. I mean, there's not really any NBA players I'd like to get injured, but Gordon Hayward especially. Like, they're all dumb injuries. They're all just like freak incidents, and he's always getting hurt. So hopefully Gordon Hayward is finally able to have a fully healthy season in this upcoming year. And if he does, and assuming Lamelo Ball is also healthy, I really don't see why this team couldn't be just as good as some of the lower tier playoff teams in the East. Teams like the Knicks or the Bulls or the Celtics. And people may get mad at me calling them lower tier, but let's just be realistic. Like I was saying earlier, the East has never been better than it is right now. And while those teams, you can sit there and say they have clear all-star players and they have experience and all this and that, the Hornets were in the playoff race last year, number 1. And number 2, they could have 3 all-star caliber players this season. And if you think that's being, dramatic, look at the guys. Terry Rosier just had the best season of his career. He put up 20 points a game on incredible efficiency, and he was also pretty decent at passing the ball without turning it over, even though playmaking is not his main thing. Gordon Hayward had his best year since Utah. He got back to being an extremely efficient player, shooting 47, 41, 84 from the field, and also putting in 6 rebounds and 4 assists to go along with his 20 points. Dude was great, and he was actually decent enough on the defensive end as well. And then, of course, Lamelo Ball, the player who was the Rookie of the Year, who was clearly the best rookie last season. No offense to that dude on the Timberwolves, but he just wasn't on Lamelo Ball's level, alright? Nobody was. Tyrese Halliburton, same thing. Lamelo Ball was clearly the best rookie last season. 16 points, 6 assists. Dude was balling, and that is his stats considering he came off the bench for the first half of the season. He wasn't even a starter the whole year. Assuming he starts next season, he very well could be an all-star, and so could Gordon Hayward, and so could Terry Rosier. Now, I'm not saying they will be, specifically any of them who are not named Lamelo Ball. I would be very surprised if they make an all-star team because, number 1, the Hornets just aren't a big franchise and they're not going to have that many fans voting for all-stars. And number 2, once again, the East is absolutely freaking stacked. So even though they are, all-star level players for the Eastern Conference, they're not actually going to make it with how many good players are in the East this year. But if you go outside of their big 3, a big 3 that has very good, very even scoring, and a whole lot of playmaking. You've got a lot of good players on this team like PJ Washington, Miles Bridges, Malik Monk is no longer on the team, Who did they just get? They just got Kelly Oubre. Kelly Oubre from the Warriors, a good defensive player who gives you a little bit of offense. They have a lot of freaking talent on this team. And even though Devontae Graham is a little bit of a loss, I mean, just being real, when you have Terry Rosier and Lamelo Ball, you just don't need Devontae Graham. As good as he was, same thing with Malik Monk. Those were good players. They might be missed a little bit, but overall, they were not necessary players to this core. They were just kind of there. With LaMelo Ball getting better, you don't need those guys on this team. Now, the issue with this team, in my opinion, is going to be defense. Their offense should be great with that big three and the good defensive players around them. I think they're going to have a very good offense. The issue with this team is the defense. Kelly Oubre is an above-average defender, but I think some people overrate him on defense a little bit. He's not like an all-defensive team guy. And then you've got some other issues. LaMelo Ball is not exactly a great defender. Terry Rosier is a bad defender straight up. Gordon Hayward can be iffy, especially with all of his injuries. And there's just nobody else who really jumps out at me as an elite defender on this team. Miles Bridges gets those highlight blocks sometimes, but he's not an elite defender either. This team doesn't have, it doesn't have that one dude. That one dude you can just look at and be like, this guy, he's going to go out there and he's going to lock down whoever we're playing, whatever star player we're playing against, whether it's a Zach LaVine or, I'm just going to say Joel Embiid or Giannis, but nobody locks down either of those guys, but like a normal star player, a reasonable star player, a Zach LaVine type dude, a, Jaylen Brown type even, who is going to lock down these other all-star players, and this team just doesn't have that, and I think that could be their downfall in this season. I do believe this team will have a winning record. I do believe they will be in the play-in tournament, and they will be competing for a playoff spot. But if I'm being completely honest, even though I started this video saying they could be a playoff team, and I do believe that, okay? Don't get me wrong, Hornets fans. If the Hornets do manage to break into that 7th or 8th seed this season, one of the other teams that I predicted ahead of them underperforms, will not be surprised at all whatsoever, okay? This team absolutely could get it done. But just looking at the team overall, I just don't know if they have enough on either end. They're going to be a very good offense, but you've also got an issue where you get in clutch moments in big games, and while they do have 3 very good offensive players, they don't have a superstar. They have 3 low-level all-star type players, do not have a superstar on this team, however. They don't even have a high-level all-star of like a Zach LaVine type guy or a Jason Tatum type guy. They just have decent all-star players and a good overall team. So could they make the playoffs? Yes. Do I believe they will make the playoffs? Sadly, no. But the Hornets will be entertaining to watch this season, and they have a very, very bright future as long as they keep this core together. And again, fingers crossed, everybody stays healthy.